I had simultaneously was kind of becoming more involved with the Michigan Association of Fire Chiefs and understanding what they do. Well, they put on this kind of a banquet at their annual conference, and they have what's called the Procession of the Roses. And they recognize fire chiefs and firefighters that had passed away since the last dinner. And Jeff's name wasn't read. And part of the discussion around that was just this uncomfortableness about how Jeff died. And that sparked some emotion for me.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the podcast. This is Charlie English, your host, documentary filmmaker. And on today's podcast, we have Chief Greg Flynn, Fire Chief of West Bloomfield Township in Michigan. Where exactly is that? Is that the name of the town? West Bloomfield Township? Is that the town?
It is 36 square mile township, and about 30 minutes north of the city of Detroit. So we're southeast Michigan. Yeah.
I've got some family in New Baltimore. It's been a minute since does New Baltimore sound? Is that right?
New Baltimore, just a county over, so probably an hour drive, if you will, across 696 and to the other side there, over heading towards Canada. So,
yeah, it's been a minute since I've been there, but yeah, I love visiting it there. So, thanks for joining us. And really, today we want to talk about the Yellow Rose campaign and your big driver behind that. So before we get to that, talk to me about your history. What was your journey as a firefighter, or what does that look like? Where did you start out, and how did you become the fire chief? Talk to me about that. Tell me about that.
So the elevator speech on this one, I think, is I come from a big family. I'm number 6 of 6 in my family, and my brother, my second oldest brother, Eric, Marine. And he was home on leave, and his oldest daughter, Jessica, was still in her crib, was very sick. She had a febrile seizure and had vomited and had stopped breathing. And we had called 911, and everything was happening. And so firefighter showed up first and cleared her airway, and the seizure stopped, and she gave her some rescue breaths. Jessica's a chiropractor, has 2 of her own kids today, is doing great. That was a real change in where I was kind of as a high schooler and what I wanted to do. And that's when I said, I want to do that. And so that put me on a path right out of school to start working on a volunteer ambulance, and then right into paramedic school and did that, and then got my fire training and was picked up here in West Bloomfield Township after some time on a private ambulance. And I've been here ever since, in my 27th year here, and I've been the fire chief since 2015. I work with 98 other awesome humans that care a lot about our community, the men and women of the WBFD, and they make this job easy and rewarding because of the professionals that they are, and we're just part of a great community and love what I do.
That's great. So 10 years, a decade, you've been the fire chief?
I have.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Excellent. How much longer do you think you'll be?
Well, there's
plan?
one of the great things about public service for many public servants still is there's a little bit of a finish line where there's some of those benefits for serving the community for years. So I probably have just a little bit under 2 years that I'll continue in this capacity, but definitely feel like there's a lot more left in the tank for service of some kind. And what that next piece looks like, it might still be a little too far out to know exactly, but I'll be exploring that in the months ahead.
Excellent. Well, good luck with that journey. I'm sure you'll find your calling or whatever that is. So talk to me about your role. Tell us a little bit about the Yellow Rose campaign, what that is, and maybe just touch on, if you can, or I can ask it again. What is your role, or why are you a part of this program?
I think it's probably best, Charles, to start at the beginning. And I was a new fire chief, and I was promoted to fire chief on April 1st, which you always wait till the next day to see if it really stuck, right? In February, that was in 2015. And in February of 2016, we lost one of our firefighter or lieutenant to death by suicide. And so, having less than a year in this 5 bugle seat, and we had never lost a member of our department, line of duty, active duty.
Wow.
So there was a lot of unknowns, and we navigated through that as a team. And after that, I had simultaneously was kind of becoming more involved with the Michigan Association of Fire Chiefs and understanding what they do. Well, they put on this kind of a banquet at their annual conference, and they have what's called the Procession of the Roses. And they recognize fire chiefs and firefighters that had passed away since the last dinner. And Jeff's name wasn't read. And part of the discussion around that was just this uncomfortableness about how Jeff died. And that sparked some emotion for me, some frustration, because I'd worked my whole career with Jeff, and his career much longer, obviously. I mean, I came in and he had been here a little bit longer than me. And but I just had known about him. I mean, he worked in the private ambulance, was very active and all this. And I remember at his funeral, our chaplain said, his last decision doesn't define him. One's last decision does not define or negate all of these decisions that he's made to save people's lives and take care of his kids and just be a friend and a father, all of these things. And so we can do better. And so we started discussing it with some other chiefs, and it took us probably about a year to discover that we really didn't know what we wanted to do. To build a program and like Safe Talk or these other QPR and these other things that are already really researched and science-based and things, it's not what we needed. And so what we ended up arriving at is we wanted to change attitudes. You're in control of your attitude. That is something that is like really kind of quick. Culture is big. Culture is decades to change within organization. Morale is larger group type stuff, but can be, months, years to change. But attitude is nearly instant. You can show up with one attitude and minutes later have another one. And that's what the Yellow Rose is about. It's that simple, Charles. It's having an attitude that you're going to listen, having an attitude and an approach to the other humans around you that you don't have to have the answer, but you will make the time to listen. And it doesn't matter if you wear a badge or if you have a whiteboard and kids in a classroom, or you're a nurse, or you're a lawyer, or any of the other thousands of awesome jobs out there. We need people to listen. And we need people to recognize that every day is not awesome. And sometimes, as Mary Van Hout would say, you have a hello. And that hello can really be an invitation to a conversation that can open up some things and really change the trajectory of someone's life. So that's the Yellow Rose is that invitation. When you wear the Yellow Rose, or you have a Yellow Rose sticker, you have your Yellow Rose challenge coin, and someone sees that, they know that you're willing to listen. I may not be able to fix it, but I'm going to listen because I understand that that's more than likely what you're looking for right now.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about the coin, because we do, one of the things we do in the film is follow Chief Paul Bierce, and the retired chief of Rio Rancho in New Mexico. And part of his program, The Fire That Burns Within, is they do the challenge coins at the end, and they say the pledge. Mm-hmm. And Chief Bierce handed me a challenge coin and said, "Do you accept?" And I was like, "Yes." And I took that very seriously. It means something to me. I've got it on my wall right there. I brought it all the way across the world to Portugal. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, behind you. Yeah. And that was something I really wasn't aware of when I started the film, was the challenge coins and what those were and what they meant. So that's been a very interesting experience for me. I kind of came in to this whole firefighter community pretty raw, like not really knowing a ton about it. You see the firefighters, you see the fire engine go by, you know what they are and what they do, but you don't, like, I would get little glimpses here and there into the community, but not like the deep dive I've kind of taken this past year. And it's been amazing, and it's been wonderful to get to know this community and to earn their trust and do something that I hope helps. And so that's really the point of the film, but I don't want to talk about the film anymore. But I just want to say I got the challenge coin, and so it's important to me. So you mentioned other people outside of the community. I think that's a great segue into. I don't want to step too far away from the Yellow Rose campaign, but like me getting the challenge coin as, let's call myself a civilian. And would it be appropriate for me to wear a t-shirt, a Yellow Rose t-shirt? Would it be to wear the suicide awareness shirt? I mean, is that something the community can do? Can they support you guys, not just financially, but by wearing the shirts, by having the stickers? Like, is that an appropriate thing? As an outsider, I want to ask, is that an appropriate thing?
Yeah, so two thoughts. Number one, the coin was very purposeful to have a physical thing to hold on to. And
Mhm.
our coins are very purposeful in the sense that they're made of real metal. So if you take a
Mhm.
magnet and put up next to that coin, it's going to attach. There's
Mhm.
value. And
Mhm.
there's purpose in that. There's purpose in choosing a rose that that is yellow, and the rose
Mhm.
that represents this going through life up the stem with the thorns and the things that are so difficult, but then arriving at this bloom, the rose itself and how beautiful it is, representing life.
Mhm.
The color yellow speaking to optimism and hope. The
Yeah.
rose also speaking to the symbolism of confidentiality. That, Charles, if
Mm.
you were to uh, see me with a yellow rose lapel pin or something on my sport coat, and you came over and talked to me, and we had just met, that you trust that I've taken the pledge and that's going to stay between
Mhm.
us. Or if you wanted me to reach out for help, that I'm going to follow through on that. So having that
Mhm.
physical reminder is an important piece of it. And I carry my yellow rose coin. On the back of our coin, we have our what's called our Give 55. And that is an internal program that we have at our department, where we ask that you give 55 minutes to a mental health professional every year. Now, that 55 is very
Mhm.
symbolic too, because that 55 was Lieutenant Hiltner's badge number. So
Mhm.
and we put that same symbolism on our coin with a fire truck, and then a speed limit sign that it
Mhm.
represents with the white sign about 55, meaning slow down, check in with
Yeah.
somebody, take your time, enjoy the ride, enjoy the career. But remember,
Mhm.
it takes effort. We look at it as a three-legged stool. We need you to be financially set, we need you to be physically well, and we also need you to be emotionally healthy. And when all three legs of that stool are equal, we have stability in our lives. But all three of those legs take effort. To the
Yeah.
kind of the second point of who's in on the campaign, everyone's welcome. And you know, I hear so often people are like, we're raising money, we're doing this. We aren't. We ask to cover the costs of things just like anything, but
Mhm.
we have we have some people that believe in the campaign, that are
Yeah.
very quietly supportive of what we do. And the things that we do are very low cost, because it's having conversations like this that cost us very little, except maybe our time and some talent, where we can normalize the conversation of emotional health and wellness. And
Mhm.
we can say with the yellow rose, kind of the second point of it is making that commitment. But point two, what can I do as a coworker or as a neighbor in the community to draw in others,
Mhm.
um, to fill that gap? And
Yeah.
while the answer isn't always clear, the intent is there. I'm going to try something, and I'm going to start off by listening.
That's excellent. That's a wonderful way to put it. And I'll put the link if anybody's interested in looking at the coins or looking at the t-shirts. I'll put that in the description of the podcast. If you feel inclined to support the program, please feel free to do so. Um, I really like how you framed that. That's really I really like how you talked about the community, and I think that's one point Mary and I talked a little bit about, was to how can the community support not just the spouses, not just the father and moms and immediate family. How can the community itself support our first responders, firefighters? Is there a message you have for the community, surrounding community? Because these are not easy jobs. I mean, I know they're heroic and they do some amazing work, but it's not always pretty. So is there something you tell community members in your community to help support your firefighters and first responders?
So I'm sure Mary and Paul have had some very insightful responses to these questions because they're two of the most brilliant people I know
Yeah,
as
they are
advocates
wonderful.
for emotional wellness for everyone. Um, by taking care of each other, you strengthen the community. First responders are attached to the community based on the infrastructure and the engagement that the community has. And what I mean by that is when you have a community that takes care of each other and lifts each other up, or at least at a minimum, uh, is kind to one another, then acts of violence or taking care of those that are hungry or those that need shelter, right? Those get taken care of without first responder intervention. And so the lack of usage helps so that the capacity, the bandwidth is very specific for when
Mhm.
there is an event. It's the stacking of events while they may be small. So I guess think of it this way, Charles. It's not so much the big events that are always the issue. It's the nonstop event, and there's no time for that first responder to process. And we're even in a bit of a more of a trick bag as we're maybe not drawing in the number of new recruits as we have people retiring from the service, that
Mhm.
the the amount of overtime and the expectation of our team that is here, and we're asking them to fill in some of these gaps, that we're just stacking more and more and more on top of that. And so we're trying to stay on mission. We're aware that the mission may be having a negative impact on our people. And then what does it take in order for them to minimize that? Well, we need time, and time is something that we don't have. So when our community is being responsible and they're responsible with fire, and we reduce trips and falls, and we have fewer car accidents, and then that lessens the burden. And saying hello, saying thank you, those things go a long way. There's nothing that makes you feel more proud when you're walking through the grocery store shopping for meals for that day, and people, they just say thank you, and that's enough.
Yeah.
None of these folks want to be called heroes. I mean, they chose to do the job. They're
Mhm.
humble that way. But that thank you just fills your cup, and it gives you a nice smile, and that goes a long way.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that. Mary mentioned something similar to that. She said, say hello, because you guys, just because the uniform's on doesn't mean you're not human beings, doesn't mean we have no idea when you're coming. I was lucky enough when I did a ride along, to be invited for dinner that night. They were very
Hmm.
kind and it was delicious. And anything with green chilies in it is amazing. But just when you see them, say hello, friendly little wave, things like that. I think it's I think seen and being acknowledged, I think helps them as human beings, like you said. Um, is there anything, I kind of jumped around a little bit on that. I apologize. Is there anything we missed about the Yellow Rose that you want to discuss before we
Well, I
start
would just
on?
the simplicity of it is there's kind of only one rule with the yellow rose, and we talked about the coins and the T-shirts and that kind of stuff. What you won't see on the website is a coin for sale,
Yeah.
because we don't sell them. There's only one way to get a coin, and that is to take the pledge, as you did with Chief
Hmm.
Pierce. And that's important. Bringing this public demonstration of your commitment. I was asked one time, they're like, Greg, why do you have people walk up in front of all of these people, and then you make them say this pledge out loud? Now, they don't say it into a microphone. They just say it
Yeah.
to the Yellow Rose Advocate, and there's some music playing quietly in the background. And I said, well, would you just do me a favor and just try it? And they got halfway through the pledge, and took some deep breaths because it
Hmm.
triggered an
Yeah.
emotional commitment to what those words, it made connections to events and lived experiences that maybe were a little bit suppressed or maybe not completely processed. And it was opening that spigot and saying it's okay to do that. And
Mhm.
this coin is a reminder that you're not alone. You're not the only one that has had loss. You're not the only one that has dealt with a transgender loved one, or addiction, or separation, or all of these things that are lived. And I'm not judging any of those things. I'm just saying this is life,
Yeah.
and it can and will be hard. But when we have a network of people that are around us, and you have bosses that are empathetic, not sympathetic, empathetic,
Hmm.
um,
Yes.
that policies and workplace practices acknowledge the importance of emotional wellness, just like we do with financial and
Hmm.
physical. Boy, I just think it lifts organizations to an area where performance from employees, if you look at it from an administrative position, it it
Yeah.
just go the trajectory is the direction any boss would want. And that, Charles, that can put some people off. They're like, Greg, well, you're just doing this because of this reason. And I won't
Yeah.
back away from that. I won't back away from the fact that as a fire chief, I'm in charge of performance. Now, you may think that, not you, but some of your listeners might think, well, that sounds like he's just being a boss. I am. That's part of my
Mhm.
job. And I need to find balance in being empathetic, but being a boss and bringing accountability and not just being fearful of if I do something, something bad may happen. It could. It could.
Yeah.
So courage, institutional courage, we refer to that as, and believing that the policies and procedures are fair and equitable. Those kinds of
Yeah.
things. I find them interesting to talk about because people are running away from conversations that we should be having, and I think we would just not have so much drama if we could
Yeah.
have some of those difficult conversations.
Yeah. That's an excellent way to put it. And what is kind of that? Do you get, if you can talk about something, I hope you get these amazing stories where somebody pulls you aside and said, "Hey, I had a a colleague come up to me and say they were struggling, and we went out and had a coffee, and I helped them." Like, do you get feedback like that? Like people coming back saying, "Hey, that it meant something to me that I
Sure.
took this pledge, and
Yeah.
this is my story." Like, how is that reverberating through the community?
Yeah. I was at a smaller department here in Michigan, and there's a blended paid on call career department. And we did the Yellow Rose as part of their monthly evening training, and they had nearly probably a 95% turnout, so full house for it. And it went late, and I had a little bit of a drive home. Anyways, I get into work the next morning and clicking through the emails, and I have an email from, and I recognize the department in the name there. And there was about a paragraph about this company officer who was on duty that day and was working through the night after the program, and they went on a suicide attempt. And it was a young man, mid 20s, and the the firefighter was there alone with him for some time waiting for the ambulance, and they were having a conversation. And he said, this is I've had multiple attempts, and I just feel alone. And the firefighter had just touched his pocket and felt the coin from the pledge, and he took the coin out and he handed it to this young man and said, "You're never alone. And if you ever feel and you have these thoughts, I want you to know that we're here for you and to call 911. And I want you to pull this coin out, and I want you to have this. And I want you to hold on to this coin
Nice.
until we show up. And I don't want you to hurt yourself because we value you and you're important to us. And we're going to come here and we're going to sort it out. Don't know that." And you use some of the language that we talk about. I don't know that I
Yeah.
can fix it because we have
Hmm.
professional counselors and clinicians that do that, but I will listen and I will fill the gap and get you to somebody who this is what they do for a living and they're good at it. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's amazing. That's
yeah,
amazing. And I think having that, the coins are heavy too. I'm sure people got that by them being made out of metal. So they're hefty. And when you say there's
right.
presence or when you pull it out and you touch it, it's got heft to it. So
Hmm.
it's,
Hmm.
I can see the power of that conversation. And I hope that meant a lot to that individual who was struggling at that time.
On the coins, kind of an interesting thing, if you look at them on the website, Charles, you'll see there's some different background colors on the yellow rose. So the yellow rose stays consistent. And the first one was the red background for our firefighters. And down below it, it'll say Firefighter Emotional Wellness Campaign. There's a white one for our EMS providers. There's a green one, green background for our community response, our community. So anybody in the community can take that pledge. And I've had the opportunity to do that at the Kevin Song Suicide Prevention Conference here in Michigan, where we had teachers and
Amazing.
survivors and all kinds of people come up, and then they would share their story. And I always ask people when they say, my son died by suicide. And I'll say, what's your son's name? I would like to hear his name, and you can just see like the relief, like it's okay. This person's going to listen and hear about my son. And I'm like, well, I celebrate that and the joy that, your son brought you. And I'm sorry for your loss. But, you don't, it's so important. I know we were talking a little bit and kind of as we were first kind of meeting is to just not dwell on the negative and look to the hope and optimism. And that is the yellow rose. It's the yellow in the yellow rose, the hope and optimism of a future. And it's not that the future will be easy or that it'll never be hard again, but it's the fact that there is a future. There is. And it takes work. So it's been a surprising ride, because I remember when we first rolled it out, Charles, there was 3 chiefs that were going to co-present. And I remember about an hour before they said, well, Greg, what if we get to the pledge part and nobody stands up? And I looked at him, I said, don't worry. I've already told 4 or 5 people that they will stand up. So we are going to start that change. We talk about the starfish in the yellow rose and the little girl out on the beach collecting starfish and doing it alone. But that as more come on, we make a bigger impact. And I'm like, it's going to take a catalyst. That doesn't happen anymore. You don't have to go talk and make sure someone's going to come up and take the pledge. People know about it. They know how important it is, and they're eager to join in on this campaign. And we call it a campaign for a reason. It's not a program. It's a campaign because it's ongoing. And we know that death by suicide, will be part of our culture for a long time until we can get some of this work. Mary will ask this question, do you believe that suicide is preventable? And that is a difficult question to answer. And I've had to think about it a bunch, but I do believe that it is. And I don't want to put qualifiers on it because I do believe it's preventable. But any rational person realizes that, when does the intervention take place? And sure, all of those are factors, but I do believe that it is.
And you never know, like you said, maybe that firefighter who responded, had he not done the pledge or been at the training or the event, and maybe he would have shied away. Reflects. You don't know like how maybe that or what his mode, his mode or mood or his thinking would have been at that moment. Maybe he wouldn't have handled it. So it's it's always, I think, amazing that you're not shying away from the conversation, because like you said, when somebody mentions, oh, my son or daughter or somebody died by suicide, I think following up with that question, curious, oh, what was their name? You're not shying away going, oh, I'm sorry for your loss, and like just walking away. So I think that's a wonderful way to look at it. And again, it might just be these little things here and there that you never know where that leads. One of the things Chief Bierce mentioned is that, mental health problem, not just with first responders, but in the United States, it's a big problem right now. And there's not like there's not a magic wand or anything to just fix it. And so I think things like you're doing at the Yellow Rose, Next Rung, other programs, Skulls for Hope, these are all little dots, I think, that are growing and developing, and maybe you can put a dent in it. And so I think there is hope. And that's one of the things I took away from walking into a film that's talking about suicide and mental health. And you're like, how do I tell a story that's real but hopeful? And I came out of that whole thing hopeful. And talking at you, I mean, it's even more. Every time I'm having these conversations, I just it puts a smile on my face and makes me happy, because it's not an easy discussion. It's not an easy discussion to have, and mental health is not. We all struggle with it from time to time at varying degrees, and it's conversations we need to have.
Well, and it's important to realize I also struggle with my physical health, and I also struggle. Well, Mrs. Flynn struggles with financial health.
I won't say anything.
But those are also all stressors, that you have to work at. And we'll talk about those. I'll go talk to a financial manager or, somebody about my retirement accounts. I'll go talk to my physician about, put me on Ozempic or whatever, like there's all these quick fixes. But when it comes to our emotional health or wellness, we don't seem to have the willingness to leverage whether that's a faith-based person or a clinician or whatever. And it's just not making sense. I've talked to a clinician, I've talked to a mental health professional, and part of our Give 55 program. And so once a year, anybody on our team can schedule an appointment to go talk to someone within at our counseling and associates, our providers, and they can go. They can go on duty. We'll schedule them as long as we know a little bit ahead of time and can accommodate the management side of it. But we'll support them any way we can. Just time for another quick story. I had a guy walk in and he handed me a resignation letter. And he said, "Chief, I'm very sorry, but I'm going to resign. And it's because of the Give 55 program." And he said, "But I'd like to tell you more." He said, over a year ago, and then he went into a story and talked about how he went for his first wellness visit. And then his bride started going with him, and they started realizing some things that were going on. And they realized that where they were living, the environment they were living in was not going to be healthy for them as a couple and the family they wanted to grow. And so after a year's worth of counseling, they decided to make a move out of state. And I watch him on LinkedIn and on Facebook and his family growing and professionally doing a little bit of a different career, but how happy he is. That is success, right? That's what we all would want that for our people. You say, "Well, Greg, you lost somebody." Well, I didn't lose them. They're in a better place. And what employer, what boss doesn't want their people to be happy? What good boss doesn't want that? So, it amazes me the things that come out of when you start listening to people and take that time, that there's some pretty awesome, powerful things that can take place.
Yeah, and like you said, nobody would blink an eye if one of your recruits, or maybe I don't know, a lieutenant or a captain, was like, "Hey, I just got a chief job down, a couple of towns down, and that would be a success and part of you and your leadership helping them develop and grow." So, I think it falls in that same vein. You're right. So that's amazing, and you're right. Excuse me, I apologize. But I think you're right that third leg of the emotional health, the mental health part of it is so key and important, because that affects your physical side of it. It can affect your financial side. Like, they all tie together. So you're absolutely right. I know, Chief, we don't want to, I know you've got to get back to work. It's nighttime here in Portugal, but I know you got your day ahead of you. So I guess you've kind of touched on it. I think I know where you're going to go. Let's end on a hopeful note. Why are you hopeful? Why are you happy? Why are you excited about campaigns like the Yellow Rose campaign, about projects like the Fire That Burns Within, like what the work that Mary's doing, all these things? Why are you excited? Why are you hopeful for the future?
So I share this story about Chief Bierce, and the interesting kind of side note, the first time that Mary Van Hout and I taught together was with Chief Bierce, when he invited Mary in, and I was co-presenting with Mary, and we got done with the program. We were out to dinner with Paul, and he's like, "Man, you and Mary really enjoy, how many classes have you guys taught together?" And we're like, "Well, this was the first one." Those two
Chemistry
individuals,
right away.
those
Nice.
two individuals have shaped and instilled in me the hope that can come from caring and demonstrating how you care about people. And I tell this story about Paul and his organization and the people that he cares about. I'm standing in that room of strangers as people are walking in, and I'm watching them walk up to each other, and they don't just say hello, they give a hug. And then they walk up and introduce, and they reach right out to me, and they say, "Oh, you're from Michigan," or "Oh," and they welcome, and offer a hug.
Mhm.
And I said, "I learned more about your culture and your organization and your willingness to take care of other humans and be kind in the first 5 minutes of people arriving at that class." And I knew that I was in a good place. And with Paul, with Mary, with many others, when you live that and you demonstrate that and have the courage to when you have the courage to be kind, and be vulnerable, that you may not always say the right word, and be vulnerable that you may not always have the right inflection, but your intent is one that comes from the right place. That's what gives me hope. Like that's what drives. And I realize and set realistic expectations. I won't nail it every time. I may not say the right thing to everyone every single time, but when you do it most of the time, you get the benefit of the doubt. And people are like,
Yeah.
no, I know what he means. I know that they care. And when you as an organization can get that spreading, and then it spreads from your organization to a neighboring organization, that's the power that this stuff, this caring for other humans is catchy. And remember, caring about someone doesn't mean you got to carry the burden. Doesn't mean you're
Yeah.
taking it on from them.
Yeah.
You care about them and you're going to help them get to the people that can help. It doesn't mean that you're taking it on. And I think it's setting some of those boundaries too. But that's the long answer to what gives me hope every day, and the inspiration, and seeing young people taking care of each other in my organization and putting their arms around each other after a tough call. And I'm just watching from afar and go, they care about each other. And man, that is so inspiring to me, that so many people do get it right. And we need to celebrate that more often.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's like it's the dots connecting. It's when you
Yes.
see the work you put in now, and it may not be that immediate feedback that you get, but you see it and you see the in little ways, the culture. And I think you're right about culture too. When you're setting it, culture comes from the top. It comes from the people at the top setting the culture and setting the expectation. And I think there are a lot of good people in your positions like yourself that are really open to that third rung of that or that third leg of that stool. So it's amazing, and again, that's why I'm finding hope, because I'm seeing it in every little conversation I have. Okay. Anything
Sure.
else you want to add? Anything we missed? I mean, it's been a great conversation, and I've
Yes.
really appreciated your time. Is there anything that I completely missed that you want to talk about?
No, I think these are the types of conversations that people will listen to and realize that there are people willing to listen, many, many people that are willing to listen, but it does take courage. And it is there, but reach out and ask those that you trust or someone close, and just start a conversation. And remember to look for those invitations. Look for people that want to have that conversation and be willing to find the right place and the right time, but have it. Don't push that off, because it's too important. And that's the conversations and the connection are where we continue to make impact. And it's again, these types of conversations make an impact. So thank you.
Absolutely. I'm just thank you for taking the time. And you're right. You never know when you can make that little positive influence in somebody's life. So, Chief Flynn, thank you so much for joining us. And audience, thank you for listening. And we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.